The Guardian's arrival. The Helios Gate pulsed with ancient energy, its crystalline rings spinning in perfect harmony as they had for millennia. Supreme Arbiter Vinthera of the Galactic Council watched through multifaceted eyes as the massive structure prepared to receive Earth's first official delegation. After 50,000 years of managing interstellar civilization, very little surprised the veteran diplomat anymore. That changed the moment humanity's ship emerged from the gate. The vessel that materialized dwarfed the Council's ceremonial fleet. Its hull gleamed with an obsidian sheen that seemed to drink in starlight, broken only by pulsing lines of blue energy that traced complex patterns across its surface. Most striking was its shape. While Council ships favored organic curves and flowing forms, this vessel bore the angular, purposeful edges of something built for functionality over aesthetics. By the first light, whispered Sub-Arbiter Kilo, his luminescent tendrils dimming in shock. That cannot be their diplomatic vessel. The humans call it the Vigilant Dawn. Vinthera replied, keeping her voice steady despite her own surprise. And yes, this is their chosen representative ship. The vessel was easily 5 kilometers in length, its broad hull bristling with sensors and other systems that the Council's scanners struggled to categorize. More disturbing were the readings of contained energy. Enough power to rival a small star, carefully regulated through systems more advanced than anything the Council races had developed in millennia. They send a warship to a peace conference. Kilo's voice carried both fear and indignation. No, Vinthera corrected, they send a guardian to protect what they value. There is a difference, one I suspect we must learn to understand. The human vessel took up position with precise control that belied its massive size. Smaller escort ships, each still larger than most Council vessels, emerged from its hangars to establish a defensive screen that was both impressive and, to ancient races long accustomed to peace, somewhat alarming. The communication channels activated, and a holographic representation appeared in the Council chamber. The human stood tall in a dark blue uniform adorned with silver insignia, her bearing confident but not aggressive. This is Captain Helena Drake of the Earth Guardian ship Vigilant Dawn. On behalf of the United Earth Federation, I bring greetings to the Galactic Council. Vinthera performed the traditional greeting gesture, her 4 arms moving in the ancient patterns of welcome. Captain Drake, the Council welcomes Earth's delegation, though I must note that your vessel exceeds our standard diplomatic protocols by several orders of magnitude. A small smile crossed Helena's face. With respect, Supreme Arbiter, we reviewed your protocols thoroughly. They specify limitations on weapons yields and prohibited technologies. The Vigilant Dawn carries no weapons banned by Council law. Its size is not restricted by any existing regulation. Because none of our member races ever conceived of building diplomatic vessels of such scale. Kalo interjected, unable to contain himself. Perhaps, Helena acknowledged, but humanity has learned through hard experience that size often correlates with survival. The Vigilant Dawn is first and foremost a rescue vessel, capable of evacuating entire populations if necessary. Its power systems exist to maintain protective fields around threatened worlds. Its sensors scan for natural disasters as readily as they do for threats. As if to emphasize her point, several of the escort vessels broke formation, their massive frames moving with surprising grace as they began a thorough survey of nearby space. The Council's own sensors registered the depth and complexity of their scans, far more thorough than anything the peaceful races typically employed. You speak of threats, Vinthera observed carefully. Yet the Council has maintained peace for 50,000 years. What dangers could possibly require such preparation? Helena's expression grew serious. Supreme Arbiter, humanity has explored only a tiny fraction of our galaxy. In that small space, we've encountered 3 extinct civilizations, evidence of multiple stellar-scale disasters, and signs of technologies that could threaten entire systems. We built the Guardian fleet not because we seek conflict, but because we've learned that peace must be actively protected. The chamber fell silent as the Council members processed this. Their civilization had indeed known peace for millennia, but they had also avoided exploring the darker corners of space, content within their known territories. Your vessels, Vinthera said slowly, they carry significant medical and scientific facilities as well. The Vigilant Dawn can treat millions of patients simultaneously and hosts research laboratories dedicated to solving any crisis we encounter, Helena confirmed. Our ships are large because they must be ready for anything. Humanity believes that true peace isn't simply the absence of conflict. It's the presence of those willing and able to preserve it. One of the escort vessels suddenly altered course, its sensors focused on a particular sector of space. Captain, a new voice cut in. We're detecting unusual quantum fluctuations in Sector 7. Configuration matches pattern Alpha 9. Helena's response was immediate but calm. Establish a containment field and begin detailed scans. Notify Council security of our findings. She turned back to the Council. Supreme Arbiter, we've detected what appears to be an unstable quantum fracture forming in nearby space. With your permission, we'd like to investigate and contain it before it poses any risk to the Helios Gate. Vinthera felt a chill run through her ancient frame. The Council had detected nothing, yet these newcomers had not only spotted a potential threat, but were already moving to address it. Perhaps, she realized, there was wisdom in humanity's approach after all. Permission granted, Captain Drake, and welcome to Council space. I believe we have much to learn from each other. The Vigilant Dawn's escorts moved with practiced efficiency, their massive forms positioning themselves around the detected anomaly. Energy fields sprang into existence, containing and studying the quantum disturbance with technology that made the Council's finest scientists take notice. As Vinthera watched, she understood that humanity wasn't joining the Council as another peaceful race seeking guidance from their elders. They were arriving as guardians, bringing with them capabilities and perspectives that the Council's ancient civilization had perhaps forgotten it needed. The next few months would prove interesting indeed, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, ancient systems that had slumbered for millennia began to stir, their sensors detecting something new in the galaxy. A race of guardians with both the will and the means to stand against the night. Echoes of the past. 3 months into humanity's integration with the Galactic Council, the warning signs became impossible to ignore. The quantum fractures that the Vigilant Dawn had detected during first contact weren't isolated incidents. They were spreading across Council space like cracks in ancient ice. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the emergency Council session, her holographic form towering over the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds. Behind her, a three-dimensional map showed the pattern of anomalies in harsh red markers against the peaceful blue of Council space. In the past week alone, we've detected 17 new quantum fractures, she reported, her voice carrying the weight of experience. Each one larger than the last. This isn't a natural phenomenon. These are scars from something that happened long ago, and they're beginning to reopen. Supreme Arbiter Vinthera studied the map with troubled eyes. Our records show no such events in Council history. We have maintained peace and stability for 50,000 years. Yes, Sarah agreed. But what about before that? A murmur ran through the assembled representatives. The time before the Council was rarely discussed, a dark age best forgotten. But humanity had made a habit of asking uncomfortable questions since their arrival. We've analyzed the energy signatures, Sarah continued, bringing up detailed scans. These fractures match patterns we've seen before in the ruins of those extinct civilizations we mentioned during first contact. Whatever caused them is cyclical, and the cycle is beginning again. The chamber's lighting dimmed as ancient Councilor Xetal floated forward, their crystalline form pulsing with concerned energy. You believe these anomalies pose a threat to the Council? I believe they're warning signs, Sarah corrected. In the past 3 months, the Guardian fleet has responded to 23 emergency situations across Council space. Natural disasters, system failures, unexplained technical malfunctions. Each incident occurred within 12 hours of a new fracture appearing. She gestured, and the map zoomed in on a particular sector. 2 days ago, the EGS Steadfast prevented the collapse of a stellar containment field around an artificial star. Yesterday, the EGS Bulwark evacuated a research station moments before its quantum core destabilized. These aren't coincidences. And yet came a new voice, sharp with skepticism. Your massive vessels just happen to be perfectly equipped to handle these emergencies. Delegate Murak of the Centauri Collective stepped forward, their metallic scales gleaming. Some might suggest these incidents convenient justification for the presence of your war fleet in Council space. Sarah's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. Delegate, the Guardian fleet has expended significant resources and put our crews at risk to protect Council worlds. We gain nothing from fabricating emergencies, except influence, Murak countered. The Council increasingly relies on human intervention. A piercing alarm cut through the chamber, its harsh tone shocking the peaceful races into silence. Sarah's hand moved to her neural interface, her eyes going distant as she processed incoming data. Supreme Arbiter, she said, urgency replacing diplomatic restraint. We're detecting a massive quantum surge in the Helios sector. Multiple fractures are forming simultaneously. The map flared with new warning markers, clustering around the Council's most populated systems. Before anyone could respond, emergency signals began flooding in from across Council space. Power fluctuations on 6 worlds, Sarah reported, reading the feeds as they came in. Gravitational anomalies forming near 3 major trade routes. The Helios Gate itself is showing signs of instability. Vinthera rose from her seat, all 4 arms raised for attention. Deploy your vessels, Admiral. The Council grants emergency authorization for whatever actions you deem necessary. All Guardian vessels, implement Protocol Omega, Sarah commanded, her voice carrying across all channels. Priority to populated systems and critical infrastructure. Establish containment fields and begin emergency evacuations where needed. The chamber's screens filled with images of human ships responding across Council space. The Vigilant Dawn led the response, its massive frame positioning itself near the Helios Gate. Other Guardian vessels moved with practiced efficiency, their massive hulls interpositioning themselves between vulnerable populations and growing threats. Councillor Exetal, Sarah turned to the ancient being. Our analysts have found references in the ruins to something called the Sundering. Does this term have any meaning to you? The crystalline entity's glow dimmed noticeably. There are legends from the time before the Council. Tales of a great catastrophe that nearly destroyed all civilizations. But they are merely stories. Stories often contain truth, Sarah pressed. We need access to your oldest records, anything from that period. These fractures aren't random. They're following a pattern, reopening old wounds in spacetime itself. A new alarm sounded, and Sarah's expression grew grave. Supreme Arbiter, we're detecting massive energy buildups in the quantum fractures. Whatever's happening, it's accelerating. Vinthera looked around the chamber at the representatives of races that had known only peace for millennia. They had forgotten how to face crisis, forgotten why their ancestors had built the Council in the first place. But humanity remembered, not from experience, but from studying the ashes of dead civilizations, from refusing to ignore the warnings written in ancient ruins. The Council chambers are yours, Admiral, Vinthera declared. Coordinate your response from here. Thank you. Perhaps now we understand why your ships needed to be so large after all. As the Guardian fleet mobilized across Council space, Sarah Chen studied the growing pattern of fractures with growing concern. Humanity had built their ships to protect against any threat, but what they were facing now wasn't just a danger to individual worlds. It was as if space itself was beginning to remember something ancient and terrible. And the time for preparation was rapidly running out. Trial by fire. The Helios Gate shuddered as another quantum shockwave rippled through space. Inside the Council's Emergency Command Center, Admiral Sarah Chen watched as the massive structure's containment fields flared brilliant blue, barely holding against forces they were never designed to withstand. Vigilant Dawn reports structural integrity at 60%. Captain Drake's hologram reported her image flickering with interference. We've deployed additional field generators, but the quantum fractures are still expanding. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 100 worlds monitored their own crisis. The Council's peaceful civilization was facing its first true test in 50,000 years, and the strain was showing. Admiral. Counselor Xetal's crystalline form pulsed with urgency. We've found something in the ancient archives. Records from before the Council's founding, speaking of a great calamity called the Sundering. Sarah moved to the ancient being station, studying the fragments of text scrolling across the screen. The stars themselves turned against us, she read aloud. Space and time fractured as the Ancient One's final weapon unleashed devastation beyond imagining. A weapon? Supreme Arbiter Vinthera joined them, her usually composed features showing concern. What civilization would create something capable of tearing space itself? One that was desperate, Sarah replied, continuing to read. One that faced extinction and chose to take their enemies with them. The question is, what were they fighting against? Before anyone could respond, new alarms blared through the chamber. The main display showed a massive surge of energy erupting from a quantum fracture near the Centauri home system. Multiple critical failures detected in Centauri defensive systems, the AI coordinator announced. Planetary shields failing. Estimated 16 million citizens at risk. Delegate Murak, who had been so critical of humanity's presence, turned desperate eyes to Sarah. Admiral, our evacuation ships can't handle this scale of emergency. We need. Guardian fleet units are already moving to assist. Sarah cut in, checking tactical displays. EGS Bulwark and EGS Steadfast diverting to your system, initiating emergency evacuation protocols. The massive human vessels appeared through emergency jump points, their enormous hulls positioning themselves between the Centauri worlds and the growing quantum storm. Energy fields powerful enough to contain a solar flare sprang into existence. This is Captain Reyes of the Steadfast. A new voice joined the channel. Beginning emergency teleport operations. We can accommodate 8 million refugees per vessel. Requesting Centauri authorities coordinate evacuation priorities. Sarah watched as the Guardian ships demonstrated exactly why humanity had built them so large. Their massive medical bays and residential sectors, once questioned by the Council, now proved essential for saving millions of lives. Admiral. Xetal called out, their crystalline form vibrating with excitement. I found more. The ancient records speak of a network, a system created to seal the fractures caused by the weapon. But it required sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew. Energy. Vast amounts of it. The early Council races gave up their most powerful technologies, used their combined energy to seal the fractures. That's why we became a peaceful civilization. We literally powered down our worlds to save space-time itself. Understanding dawned across Sarah's face, and now those seals are failing. The quantum fractures aren't just random damage. They're the breakdown of an ancient containment system. A new series of alerts drew their attention. The tactical display showed quantum fractures appearing faster now, forming a pattern that stretched across Council space like a web. By the first light, Vinthera whispered, "It's not just our space. Look at the pattern. It extends beyond Council territory. Whatever this is, it's affecting the entire galaxy." Sarah's mind raced, connecting pieces of a puzzle that had eluded the Council for millennia. Your ancestors sealed the fractures by sacrificing their energy, but they could only affect Council space, beyond your borders. The weapon's effects continued unchecked. Xetal finished. That's why you found those extinct civilizations. They weren't killed by the weapon directly. They were destroyed by the breakdown of space-time itself. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council's peace hadn't just been a philosophical choice. It had been a necessity. their reduced energy usage maintaining ancient seals they'd forgotten even existed. Admiral, Captain Drake's hologram reappeared, more urgent now. We're detecting something massive emerging from the largest fractures. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. Sarah studied the readings, her expression grim. Not unlike anything. These match the residual signatures we found in those extinct civilizations. Whatever destroyed them is coming through. She turned to address the full council. Your ancestors faced this threat once before. They sealed it away through sacrifice and dedication, but they could only contain it in their own space, leaving the rest of the galaxy vulnerable. Now it's breaking free everywhere at once. What can we do? Vinthera asked, speaking for all present. We fight, Sarah replied simply. Humanity built the Guardian fleet to protect life, no matter the threat. We have the energy resources your ancestors sacrificed. We have the technology they gave up. And most importantly, we have their example. Their warning of what happens when civilizations stand divided against universe-scale threats. She activated the command channel to all Guardian vessels. All ships, implement Protocol Omega Black. We're not just protecting Council space anymore. We're protecting the galaxy itself. As the Guardian fleet moved to face an ancient horror returning to the galaxy, Sarah Chen couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The Council had seen humanity's massive ships as signs of aggression, of warmongering. They were about to learn why Earth's motto had become peace through preparedness. And in the quantum fractures spreading across space, something ancient and terrible stirred, about to face a humanity that had learned from the past and built accordingly. The deep dark. The Vigilant Dawn's command center hummed with activity as Admiral Chen studied the three-dimensional map showing the spread of quantum fractures across the galaxy. What had begun in Council space now stretched across thousands of light years, a web of broken spacetime that pulsed with ominous energy. Analysis complete on the ancient records, Dr. Maya Santos reported, her hologram materializing beside Sarah. The weapon wasn't designed to destroy civilizations directly. It was meant to shatter reality itself, to break down the barriers between our universe and something else. The Ancient Ones weren't trying to win a war, Sarah concluded. They were trying to unmake existence itself rather than face defeat. But against what? The answer emerged from the largest quantum fracture with devastating suddenness. The sensors of every Guardian ship screamed warnings as space itself seemed to tear open, revealing something that defied conventional physics. They came through like oil spreading across water, vast, geometric shapes that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could process. Each one measured kilometers across, their surfaces rippling with patterns that hurt to look at. Multiple entities emerging from quantum fractures across all sectors. Captain Drake reported, her voice steady despite the unprecedented situation. Energy readings suggest they're similar to the structures we found in the extinct civilizations, but active rather than dormant. The Ancient One's enemies. Counselor Xetel's hologram flickered with agitation. The ones they tried to erase from existence itself. The entities moved with impossible grace, ignoring the normal laws of physics. Where they passed, reality itself seemed to warp and bend. Several Council monitoring stations simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but rather edited out of spacetime itself. All Guardian vessels implement containment protocols, Sarah commanded. Priority is protecting populated systems. Deploy quantum stabilization fields at maximum power. The human ships responded with practiced efficiency, their massive forms positioning themselves around threatened worlds. Energy fields powerful enough to contain supernovas sprang into existence, creating bubbles of stable spacetime around vulnerable populations. Admiral, Dr. Santos called out, I found something in the patterns. These entities, they're not attacking randomly. They're restoring something. Look at the way they're moving. Sarah studied the tactical display. The geometric horrors were indeed moving with purpose, their paths forming complex patterns across space. They're rebuilding their own reality over ours, she realized. The Ancient Ones didn't start a war. They interrupted some kind of vast cosmic process. Quantum stability failing in sectors 7 through 12, the ship's AI reported. Guardian vessels reporting critical power drain maintaining containment fields. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Even humanity's most powerful ships were struggling to hold back forces that operated on a cosmic scale. But in that struggle, Sarah saw something the Council had missed for 50,000 years. "They can be contained," she said suddenly. "Your ancestors proved that. The seals held for millennia. They're only failing now because the Council forgot why they needed to maintain them." "But the energy cost," Cecil objected. "It took the combined sacrifice of multiple civilizations to create those seals." "Because they worked separately," Sarah countered, "each race giving up their power individually. But humanity has learned something in our short time among the stars: the power of unified action." She opened a channel to all Guardian vessels and Council worlds. "This is Admiral Chen. I am implementing emergency protocol unity. All Guardian vessels, prepare to link power systems. Council worlds, we need every erg of energy you can safely provide." "What are you suggesting?" Supreme Arbiter Vinthera asked. "Your ancestors faced this threat as separate civilizations, each contributing what they could spare. We're going to face it as one unified force." Sarah's fingers flew across tactical controls. "The Guardian fleet was built to protect life itself. Our ships are powerful enough to contain these entities, but only if we work together." The plan came together with remarkable speed. Council worlds began redirecting power to nearby Guardian vessels. The massive human ships linked their energy systems in ways their designers had hoped would never be necessary. Multiple entities approaching Earth Guardian ship Vigilant Dawn, the AI announced. Quantum disruption at critical levels. Sarah watched as the geometric horrors closed in on her flagship. They moved with the inevitability of cosmic forces, their very existence an affront to conventional physics. But humanity had built their ships to face the unknown, to stand against any threat to life itself. "All vessels, prepare to implement quantum seal protocols on my mark," she commanded. "We're not just fighting for Council space anymore. We're fighting for reality itself." As the Guardian fleet prepared to face down cosmic horror with human determination and Council wisdom, Sarah Chen couldn't help but smile. The ancient races had sealed away this threat through sacrifice and desperation. Humanity would seal it away through unity and preparation. And in the space between realities, the geometric entities sensed something new. A young species that had learned from the past and built accordingly. A species that understood that the greatest threats required the greatest cooperation to overcome. The final battle for the nature of reality itself was about to begin. Warriors no more. The void between realities blazed with energies never meant to exist in normal space. The Guardian fleet hung in a perfect defensive sphere around the most concentrated cluster of quantum entities, every ship's power systems linked in ways that pushed human engineering to its absolute limits. "All vessels report ready, Admiral," Captain Drake announced from the Vigilant Dawn's bridge. "Quantum containment fields at maximum power. Council worlds standing by to provide additional energy." Sarah Chen stood before the tactical display, watching as the geometric horrors tried to rewrite the fabric of space-time around them. The entity's true nature had become clear in the past hours. They weren't invaders or conquerors, but something far more fundamental. They were reality's maintenance crew, trying to restore the cosmic architecture that the Ancient Ones had damaged in their desperate final act. "Dr. Santos," Sarah called out, "status of the translation matrix." "Online." Maya replied, her hologram flickering with interference from the quantum distortions. "We've decoded enough of their mathematical language to attempt communication. But Admiral, these beings, they don't think like us. They experience time and space as maintenance protocols." "Then let's speak their language." Sarah activated the fleet-wide channel. "All vessels, initiate Protocol Unity Prime. Channel all power through the Vigilant Dawn's primary array." Energy coursed through the linked Guardian ships, their massive forms glowing with contained power. The Council worlds added their contribution, a civilization that had known peace for 50,000 years once again, working to preserve the structure of reality itself. The Vigilant Dawn's primary array activated, transmitting not in radio waves or quantum signals, but in pure mathematical theorems. The message was simple, an alternative solution to the cosmic maintenance these entities were trying to perform. "They're responding," Maya reported, excitement clear in her voice. "The patterns, they're shifting to match our theoretical framework." The geometric horrors paused in their reality warping activities. Their impossible surfaces rippled with new patterns, engaging in a mathematical dialogue with humanity's flagship. "Translation coming through," Maya announced. They're surprised. They say no species has ever attempted to understand their purpose before. The ancient ones just tried to destroy them when they appeared to perform their maintenance duties. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Tell them we understand the importance of maintenance and preservation. Show them our ships, built not for war, but for protecting life itself. Ask them if we can help repair what the ancient ones damage, but in a way that preserves our reality rather than overwriting it." The exchange continued, pure mathematics carrying concepts that transcended conventional language. The quantum entities studied the Guardian fleet's containment fields with what could only be described as curiosity. "They're agreeing," Maya translated, wonder in her voice. "They say our technology, the containment fields we use to protect worlds, it's actually similar to their own methods of reality maintenance. They're offering to teach us how to properly maintain the quantum structure of space-time." Supreme Arbiter Vinthera's hologram appeared in the command center. "After 50,000 years, we finally understand. Our ancestors didn't seal away an enemy. They interrupted essential maintenance of reality itself. Their solution was to power down their civilizations, reducing the strain on space-time." "But there's a better way," Sarah replied. "Instead of powering down, we work together. Humanity's Guardian fleet working with the Council's ancient wisdom, and now with these entities' cosmic knowledge." She turned to address the fleet. "All vessels, reconfigure containment fields according to the new parameters we're receiving. We're about to learn how to be reality's maintenance crew." The next several hours were a symphony of cooperation unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Guardian ships worked alongside quantum entities, their containment fields adapting to repair rather than just contain. Council worlds provided power and coordination, their 50,000 years of peace giving them unique insight into maintaining harmony on a cosmic scale. When it was over, the quantum fractures had been sealed, not through desperate sacrifice or reality warping power, but through understanding and cooperation. The geometric entities departed not through tears in spacetime, but through properly maintained quantum corridors, leaving behind knowledge that would transform both humanity and the Council. "What happens now?" Vinthera asked as the last entity disappeared. Sarah looked at the tactical display, where Guardian ships were already adapting their systems based on what they'd learned. "Now we become what we were meant to be. Not warriors, not even just guardians, but maintainers. Humanity built these ships to protect life, and now we know that includes the life of reality itself." The Vigilant Dawn sensors showed the quantum structure of local spacetime stabilizing, stronger than it had been in 50,000 years. The Council would no longer need to maintain peace through power restriction. They could achieve it through active maintenance and cooperation. "Perhaps," Cetal observed, their crystalline form glowing with new understanding. "This is why humans built such large ships after all. Not for war, not even just for defense, but because they understood instinctively that the biggest challenges require room for cooperation." As the Guardian fleet began its new mission of cosmic maintenance, Sarah Chen reflected on how far both humanity and the Council had come. They had faced down cosmic horror not through weapons or sacrifice, but through understanding and unity. The Guardian fleet would remain massive, its ships still awe-inspiring in scale. But now those ships would carry not just the means to protect life, but the knowledge to maintain the very fabric of reality itself. They had become something new. Not warriors, not mere guardians, but custodians of existence itself. And somewhere in the mathematical spaces between realities, the entities continued their eternal maintenance, now with new allies who understood that the greatest power lies not in destruction or sacrifice, but in the willing cooperation of all who share existence itself.